Oh, good. Music stands are gone now. So our theme for April is kinship with all life, and that Dwayne Elgin reading just leaped off the page at me. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, reminded us over and over and over again that the entire manifest universe, all of it, is what he called the body of God. Not just humans, but all creation, the visible and the invisible. Many of us, just before I go any further, have issues with the word God because we have a picture in our minds of a bearded, white-haired, judgmental old guy in the sky. And that's not what I'm talking about when I talk about God. I just want to clear that up right off in the beginning. When I use that word, what I'm talking about is the life force and intelligence and creative urge that flows through all existence, all creation, everything, everywhere. And I think that's more how we understand God than as a large version of humanity. So in his book, The Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes said, body is a concrete manifestation existing in time and space for the purpose of furnishing a vehicle through which life may express itself. The physical universe is the body of God, a manifestation in form of the mind of God, he said. The manifestation of spirit is necessary if spirit is going to come into self-realization. So that means that we are the place God knows itself and experiences itself. And so is all of life. So is all of creation, what we consider alive or not. Everything that exists was made by and through the creative intelligence of the universe. And so no form is more or less sacred. It's all sacred. Even the empty space is all part of this life we call God. Ernest Holmes had an analogy that he used. He said it's like water and ice. All ice is water, but not all water is ice. There's nothing in the ice that is other than water. There's nothing in you and me that's other than spirit. All our life is the life of God, but the life of God is, we're not all of it. We're not all of it. Because all the life of God includes the furthest reaches of the universe, the space in between galaxies, nebula, planets, suns, asteroids, all of it. Every human being, Muslim, Christian, Jew, Nigerian, Ukrainian, Puerto Rican, American, it doesn't matter. Every cow and cat and dog and centipede and earthworm and every proton and electron and the space in between them. Everything is the body of God, an expression of the life of God. And we are fortunate to have evolved enough to reflect on that truth and to reflect on ourselves as a manifestation of that life, and to reflect on what it means to be the life of God and what it means to us because we can reflect on that question. In the reading, Dwayne Elgin said, when we're truly centered in that life current flowing through us, we tend to act in ways that will promote the well-being and harmony of the whole. And I really think that's true. Once we really realize what we are and what everything else is, we start to think of it as a seamless whole instead of as something other than us, something outside of ourselves. He said there's an underlying field of consciousness that weaves humanity together, indeed all life together, making it possible for us to understand intuitively what's healthy and what's not, what works and what doesn't. That, I think, is our next step in evolution, to become global citizens, cosmic citizens, rather than just earthly life forms, to be so expanded in consciousness that we're centered in the life current that flows through us, and we intuitively know how to understand the whole and how to care for the whole. if you stop and think about life as we know it right now, we live in truly a global community. Like, I can find out what happened clear across the world that fast. All I have to do is get on the internet, right? We have a global brain now that will tell us whatever it is we want to know. We can find out about other cultures, other countries. We can find out about what's happening in research and science and knowledge and advancement of all kinds. And the interesting thing that research and science is telling us is that every life form on the planet has awareness of some sort or another. Consciousness exists everywhere, even in those things we call dead. Everything has consciousness, and the things that are evolved a little bit enough to have nervous systems have awareness, like we do. It's really interesting. It's not a new idea. Charles Darwin suggested it in 1872. He said there was continuity between the emotional lives of humans and animals, and that the differences are in degree rather than in kind. He said the lower animals, like man, manifestly experience pleasure and pain and happiness and misery. Well, in 1872, there were certain sectors of our population who were not even considered human. Remember? I mean, the Civil War ended in 1865. That wasn't very long before that. So we are all advancing in this regard. Women didn't get the vote till 1920. We're all evolving constantly. So the idea that our whole planet is alive and conscious is still a relatively new idea for many of us, and that every single sentient life on it experiences many of the same things we do, the same feelings we do, is a relatively new idea for many people, even though it was suggested a long time ago. I think it's a relatively new idea to many of us to know that all life on our planet depends on what we do. It depends on what we do. Since 1972, we have every year outstripped the capacity of the planet to handle us, to heal itself, to take what we give it and reprocess it. We now need a planet and a half every year. So obviously that can't last. We got to start doing things differently. And obviously doing things differently starts, like everything else, in our own consciousness, in our consciousness of what life is, in our consciousness of what spirit is, as this life all around us in expression. So I'm gonna tell you a couple of stories to ruffle your consciousness a little bit. That's my job, isn't it? To comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. So the first story is about a wild Bahamian grouper named Larry. It's a fish. He lives in the ocean, and his name's Larry. And Larry is a friend with a journalist and writer named Kathy Unruh. When she scuba dives, Larry comes over to be petted and stroked and tickled under the chin. This is a fish. It's a grouper, a wild fish, right? He sees the bubbles and he comes over. Whenever anybody dives in his area, he comes to see if it's Kathy, because he knows this is going to feel really good. He loves to be petted. Another story comes from Jane Goodall, who was, of course, is still a great researcher with regard to the great apes, chimpanzees especially. She wrote about a young chimpanzee whose mother, the matriarch of the family, had died, and she wrote this. 3 days after Flo's death, Flint, the son, climbed slowly into a tall tree near the stream. He walked along one of the branches and then stopped and stood motionless, staring down at the empty nest. After about 2 minutes, he turned away, and with the movements of an old man, climbed down, walked a few steps, and then lay down, eyes wide, staring ahead. The nest was one he and Flo had shared a short while before she died. In the presence of his big brother, Fegan, Flint seemed to shake off a little of his depression. But then he suddenly left the group and raced back to the place where Flo had died. He became increasingly lethargic, refused food, and with his immune system weakened, fell sick. The last time I saw him alive, he was hollow-eyed, gaunt, and utterly depressed, huddled in the vegetation close to where Flo had died. The last short journey he made, pausing to rest every few feet, was to the very place where Flo's body had lain. He stayed there for several hours. Then he struggled on a little further, and then curled up and never moved again. There's a guy named Dr. Alex Wild, and he studies birds in the wild. And there's a crow that he calls 007. 007 was first given a very simple puzzle. Pick up a stick and reach inside a box to push out a piece of food. He was given harder and harder puzzles, always different, harder and harder puzzles, until he was able to walk through 8 separate different tasks, beginning with the selection of a certain size of stick and going through 7 different tasks to finally get the food. And he would stop and look at his choices, short stick, medium stick, long stick, and he'd look at what he had to do, and he'd pick the right stick finally, and he'd do the thing, and then he'd move on to the next one and pick the appropriate tool, and he did that 7 times in a row to get the food. 007 is a wild crow. The final story involves an elephant herd in northern Kenya, and an elephant named Babyl, B-A-B-Y-L, lives with the herd, and she has a bad leg and she can't walk very fast. The rest of the herd waits for her, and one day when they really needed to be moving, she couldn't walk, so the matriarch carried her, the matriarch of the herd. There's a researcher named Ian Douglas Hamilton, and he's watched this herd for years, and what they do is they walk for a while, and then they all stop and look back to see how Babyl is doing, and if she's tired, they stop and rest, and if she's not, they keep going. Biologically, this makes no sense, because biologically, Babyl is no good to that herd. She is a liability to them. But they do it because they care for her, and they care about her. So they stop to make sure she can keep up. See, my point in telling you all this is consciousness is everywhere. Emotional awareness is everywhere. Everything has consciousness, right? When a being's evolved to a point of having a nervous system, it has feelings and emotions. They may not be just like ours, but they exist. They're all part of this flow of life that we walk around in, that flows through us. It's all part of that flow of life. Sentience, emotional lives, grief, joy, family ties. It exists everywhere. When we start to open up to that, the rest of our consciousness changes too. When we start to open up to that, we make room in our consciousness. When we think about the world and our future, we make room in our consciousness for all of life. For all of life. Which means, that the Native Americans say we have to think 7 generations back and 7 generations forward every time we make a decision. So that we make sure that our grandkids and our great-grandkids and their great-grandkids and theirs have a place to live. So we start to participate in that flow of life, and we make room in our consciousness for these kinds of ideas that animals that we think of as wild care for each other in these family ways, and that grouper like to be scratched under the chin and all those kinds of things. Then we start to make room in our consciousness for solutions for all life. We start to make room in our consciousness for the creation of a world that works for literally all existence. This is the paradigm shift we're making. We're moving away from, for example, the earth as dead rock. We now know that the earth is a system, right? And that every part of its expression relies on every other part. So that if not us particularly, but in a way, because of some of the ways we live our lives, slash and burn all the rainforests, we don't have enough oxygen and enough carbon dioxide absorption capability to stay alive even here, where we're far, far away from the rainforest. We're starting to understand how everything on Earth works together. Everything on Earth is part of the whole. This is the paradigm shift we're making. We're not islands unto ourselves. We are part of universal consciousness. We're part of universal consciousness. Dwayne Elgin said again, our sense of meaningful connection expands to the entire community of life, including past, present, and future generations. Every action in a living universe has ethical consequences that we can feel as they reverberate through the living cosmos. In a living universe, a purposeful universe in which we are an integral part, we choose simpler ways of living so we have more meaningful relationships, more creative expression, more rewarding experiences. And other things shift into the background when we discover that all beings are part of the seamless fabric of creation. It naturally awakens in us, he said, a sense of connection with and compassion for the rest of life. We automatically broaden our scope of empathy and concern when we realize that we are inseparable from all that exists. We no longer see ourselves as beings, as entities whose being stops at the edge of our skin, whose empathy stops with our family or our race or our nation. We see that because we all arise simultaneously from a deep ocean of life energy, a vital connection exists among all beings. A vital connection exists among all beings. We all arise simultaneously from this ocean of being. So my invitation to you this week is to broaden your consciousness, to move out the borders of your consciousness so that you begin to take in the life around you, all life, the life everywhere on our planet, the life beyond our planet, the connection between you and everything that exists, the flow of life, the connection with this, as he put it, the mother universe and all its life forms, the mother that is always birthing new life. When we can begin to feel that, we begin to envision a world that works for all of it. All of it. From the life that's way down deep in the soil to the life that's in the treetops and the highest mountaintops and everything in between. And I invite you to a deep understanding that the world we're trying to create, this world that works for everyone, starts with your consciousness. Your consciousness. Because each of you is part of, a manifestation of, a highly evolved part of the life of the cosmos. I want to close with a little poem that I found in a work by a mystical author I'd never heard of before, but now I have to read. His name is Mikhail Naimi. He said, "So think as if your every thought were to be etched in fire upon the sky for all and everything to see. For so in truth it is. Speak as if the world entire were but a single ear intent on hearing what you say, and in truth it is. Do as if your every deed were to recoil upon your own head, and so in truth it is. So wish as if you were the wish, and so in truth you are." So join me now as we turn within, allowing our consciousness to billow outward to the furthest reaches of the universe. To understand that everything we can encompass in this universal consciousness is the manifest body of God. To understand that everything that we encompass in this universal consciousness comes from the mind, the life of God. And that right where we are, God is, for we are the manifest expression of that divine consciousness. All that we are is divine. And as we breathe that in, that means that right where we are is that same creative urge and power that spoke into being the universe. That right where we are is the same boundless love and infinite wisdom that maintains the universe, every planet right where it's supposed to be, every galaxy moving through the universe and expanding at the perfect rate, that holds our planet just at the right distance from Sol, its sun, so that we live along with everything else on this beautiful organism called Earth. That right where we are, all of that is, including the power to think and vision and live into a world that works literally for all life. So I know that each one of us allows ourselves to feel that rushing flow, that current of the life of Mother Universe as it moves through us, as all that we do. I know that each one of us allows our vision, that gift of our conscious evolution, our vision and our imagination to construct piece by piece that world that works for all life, where all is respected, where all is honored, where all is given the place to live. And I know that our actions follow that conscious awareness of love, of possibility, of joy, of acceptance, of open-heartedness, so that we live our way moment by moment and day by day into that vision, into a vision of a world that works for all. And knowing this is the truth of this community and everyone in it, I say thank you. I am so grateful for this community of consciousness and love and vision, this community of extraordinary people. I am so grateful for life, this adventure of becoming all that we came here to be. And from this place of gratitude, I release these words into the law, that infinite yes of the universe, knowing the yes has already come, and this vision is unfolding. We begin to look for it. We begin to see glimmers of it. We begin to nurture it in our hearts. And we just let it be. And to acknowledge this, we say together, and so it is.
Just a thread, a simple thread in this glorious web of life. We are all just drops within a stream flowing towards an ocean of light. We may forget where we come from. We may forget where we're going to. I might not see that you're a reflection of me as much as I'm a reflection of you. I am just a seed, a blessed seed with eternity unfolding in me. And I pray that as I grow, I will reveal the love that illuminates my soul. When I remember where I come from, when I remember where I'm going to, 'cause I'm a reflection of you. This is my simple prayer. May I become a reflection of the infinite one. This is my simple prayer. May I become a reflection of the infinite one. This is my simple prayer. May I become a reflection of the infinite one. This is my simple prayer. May I become a reflection of the infinite one.
Now we have a moment, we have an opportunity to contribute to the work of this center and its ongoing existence and growth so that we can become all that we came here to be as a community. But we also have a moment just to stop and be grateful. I urge you all to just stop for a minute and briefly count your blessings. Actually, it can take all day once you get started, but just think of a few things that you're so grateful for. The attitude of gratitude is the attitude that opens us up to more of life, to more passion, to more connection, to more. And so as you feel that gratitude rising up in you, as the basket passes through your hands, whether you're able to give or not, just bless the abundance of this community. Bless its life, its growth, its well-being. And affirm with me, gratefully I give with an attitude of abundance.
Gratefully I give with an attitude of abundance.
For I know that as I give, so do I receive.
For I know that as I give, so do I receive.
Abundantly.
Abundantly.
And so it is.
And so it is.
3, 4.